afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Using Technology in Worship Toward Making Disciples. My name is Gwen Dorsey, and I am the Graduate Admissions Counselor for the graduate programs in Worship and Music, Divinity, and Counseling here at Cairn University. It is my pleasure to introduce our faculty presenter for today's webinar. Dr. Benjamin Harding is the Dean of the School of Music and a classically trained pianist with 20 years of worship leading experience. Dr. Harding has bachelor's degrees from Cairn University, a master's degree, and professional studies certificate from Manhattan School of Music, and a Doctor of Musical Arts degree in piano performance from the University of Maryland, College Park. He is also Director of Worship Ministries at Riverstone Church in Yardley, Pennsylvania. In today's webinar, Dr. Harding will provide principles for using technology to help your congregation grow as disciples of Jesus Christ. Practical tips related to lighting, sound reinforcement, live stream, and live audio mixing will be discussed. Before I turn things over to Dr. Harding, I want to draw your attention to the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Throughout the webinar, you're welcome to submit any content questions in the Q&A feature. And if you have any general questions, such as questions for admissions or about our graduate programs or comments, we ask that you put them in the chat and a counselor will answer them. At this time, I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Harding.
Wow, Gwen, thank you so much for making this possible. Gwen is just an amazing colleague here at Cairn University in making these webinars possible to serve you and your local church. Thank you so much for joining us today here at Cairn on this webinar, Using Technology to Make Disciples. If you're like me, I am really into technology. I love technology. I use it every day, and it's made my life easier. And it's made the connection with audiences more and more possible, even as a classical pianist, let alone a worship leader. So here I am presenting using technology in worship to make disciples in an optimistic vein or in a positive vein. And if you're also like me, you're also coming into the use of technology with eyes wide open, knowing that there are pitfalls and there are certainly concerns that are researched concerns and that are proven concerns related to the use of technology, especially in the areas of social media engagement and the like. In fact, my wife and I attended a seminar just a weekend ago provided by Protect Young Eyes, in which they gave a wonderful presentation on tools, tips, and strategies how to protect our young family in the use of technology, in particular, social media. So we come into this topic today, eyes wide open, understanding that technology can be a really good thing in helping us live in this world in a more God-honoring way, really, in a more productive way. But we also come into this conversation realizing that technology as a tool can be used for evil purposes. And we need to be ready and willing to talk about these particulars and really not afraid as Christians to ask the hard questions related to our technology use and really consistently being intentional about the use of technology in our own personal lives and, of course, in our church. All that to say, today's presentation is going to be on the more positive side of things in terms of using technology to really expand the reach of your church in the community, and to also use it to grow disciples for Jesus. And that's what we're about as worship leaders, as Christ-centered, gospel-centered, joyful worship leaders. We are in the business of making disciples. So, what to expect in this webinar? We're going to talk about liturgy or worship, your worship practice, liturgy being the public practice of worship. We all have a liturgy. Whether you're an evangelical free church like I am in right now at Riverstone Church, whether you're in a Pentecostal church like I was the majority of my life, or whether you're in a Presbyterian church or an Anglican church or a Baptist church or a non-denominational church, you've got a public practice of worship that's called a liturgy. And you have the opportunity to frame your liturgy and your worship practice around the idea of making disciples for Jesus Christ. And then we're going to talk about using technology for the purpose of making disciples. So sort of reframing the use of technology and seeing it as an opportunity, seeing the developments with the iPhone, the Mac Pro, the incredible presentation software that you have at your church, to the organizational software, to the DAWs that you use, to the sound system that you have. All of these technological tools are able to be used for God's glory and for the purpose of discipling your congregation. So we're going to take a look at those two things in light of practical applications. I'm just going to give a bunch of tips related to sound, lighting, video, live stream, in terms of how to help you in these aspects, these particular aspects that are, I'm sure, on your mind, especially coming out of a global pandemic and going through a global pandemic. If you are still with me, if you're still with me in this presentation, in the chat box for everybody to see, now I can't see it right now, but Gwen can, and all of the participants can see it. Can you say, I want you to enter in a 1, the digit 1, if you learned how to live stream over the pandemic and you were in charge of the live stream over the pandemic? Go. All right, go ahead. Oh my goodness, look at that. The number 1, if you were in charge and learned how to live stream during the pandemic. Yep. Yep. Yep, 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 yep. Yep. Hello. See, this iPhone, it was the sun. Oh, yeah. It was Easter. It was Easter 2020 when we produced our first live stream. We pre-recorded our services at Riverstone Church, and I was in the auditorium recording our pastor, Pastor Tom Allen, who's also a professor here at Cairn. I was recording him on my iPhone, and I had to figure out how to be a video editor really, really quickly. So I texted my brother, who has experience in that. He's a medical doctor. Long story short, he said, go online and learn how to do DaVinci. If you're still with me, put a number 2 if you use DaVinci. Anyhow, there you go. If you're still with me, and you used DaVinci to edit your videos at the beginning of the pandemic. Put a number 2 in there. Anyway, you're with me. So I got on, I used my little Dell laptop, and it was cooking. It was hot. It was literally hot. I mean, the processor was working so hard to edit my videos to get it ready for Easter Sunday, and it wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. But the next Sunday, I had figured out how to do the window panes, so I sent out a dummy track of me playing and leading, and then the rest of the band recorded their stuff on their phones and sent it to me, and I figured out how to do the window paint. Okay, if you're still with me, put a number 3 in there if you figured out how to do the window pane thing during the pandemic, the window pane technique, where you had the band in different windows on a screen and you presented it on your church website. Anybody figured out how to do that? It was really cool. It was really fun while it lasted. We ended up doing that for a number of months, and that became quite old. But anyhow, we all became learners pretty quickly in the area of video production and audio production and worship planning over the internet. So anyhow, we're going to get into all that. But as you know, this is a webinar. This is sort of to whet your appetite for ongoing discussion, either with me or with folks here at Cairn, as to getting even better at using these tools that God has given to us in making disciples for Jesus. So let's jump right in. Let's go into this idea. If you were with me on the first webinar that I did in the fall, we talked about designing worship services to make disciples. And the worship service, we covered this idea that we tell the story of God and do the story of God in our worship services. So our song choice and the structure of our worship service really guides through the average Christian. It really guides the average Christian going through a worship service, that process of becoming more like Christ and in being discipled in the worship service, both in the content and in the structure of the worship service. So we talked about that. So this is sort of dovetailing off of that presentation where I say worship is about making disciples. And if this is our framework going in, it's not about a production, it's not about a stage performance, it's not about the band being awesome, it's about helping people become more in love with Jesus and them experiencing the love of Jesus every Sunday that they come in to our worship services, that are spirit-filled and that they're leaving with a sense of the love of Christ for them. If that's our framework and that's our theology going into the technology space, we're in really good shape, because we realize that God's given us all kinds of technologies to make disciples. Hello. In the 1400s, what did the Lord bless us with? The Gutenberg press. And didn't the Reformation happen like a couple decades later? I think that was a little bit providential. I could be wrong. I mean, I think maybe the Reformation could have happened by the use of the papyrus and the vellum that was available. But I think the Gutenberg press really fueled these gospel tracts and these the communication of the gospel in the Reformation, so that people could come and understand who Jesus was. Well, certainly because the Gutenberg press enabled a mass presentation of the ideas of the Reformation, so that it could carry on. And when Luther, for example, translated the Bible into German, they were able to print it and get it to people. And oh, lo and behold, schools, not only schools, but singing schools began to take shape and began to frame the public life, let alone the religious life of the continent. So here we have technology being used for the glory of God and the spread of the gospel. This is awesome. This is awesome. So if that's our framework, that we are seeing technology as a tool to be used for discipleship, that changes everything. That changes everything. It also gives us a little bit of a curiosity, for me it does anyway, to say, well, how can I use technology in a better way to make better disciples of Jesus? And I could go on and on about that, but let's continue on with the presentation. We get to the example for worship being a place where we're making disciples. So for example, congregational singing. We are commanded in scripture to sing together and worship. The question then needs to be asked, how is my use of technology enhancing this aspect of worship? Again, it's not an organ performance. Not an organ performance. And it's certainly not a band concert. It's not a worship band concert. The musicians, the instrumentalists are there, and the vocalists that are singing are there to enhance congregational singing. If that's the command in scripture, we need to use technology in such a way as to promote this vital aspect in corporate gathered worship. So at the end of the presentation, we're going to have a chance for questions, and it's going to be incredible, but it's going to also be curated and directed by Gwen. So write down your questions and even list your questions in the chat so you don't forget, and then we'll go through them. Gwen will go through them, and then we'll answer those questions at the end of the presentation. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, here we go. Next. So that second piece that I was talking about at the beginning in terms of the flow of the presentation, we need to understand that your routine is your liturgy, all right? It's the common practice of your congregation. That's your liturgy. And how is the common practice of your congregation making discipleships? Discipleships. Well, yes, but anyhow, disciples, making disciples of Jesus. How is your corporate worship, your public practice, making disciples of Jesus? And so we're asking these questions when we use technology as well, not just in the gathered public practice, not in our philosophy, just in our philosophy of worship in general, but we're also asking it in our use of technology. Here we go. Technology in church. Okay, so if we're coming to the use of technology in church and we're saying, okay, it's going to be used for discipleship. It's going to be used for discipleship. Here are a couple of tips. First, an anecdote. I was running sound, not too far in the distant past. And when I made a mistake, guess what the congregation did? Did one of these, right? Looked right back at the board. Our volunteers and our sound people are total heroes because nobody notices them when they are running a great production. Nobody notices them. But as soon as they forget to mute a mic, or they don't bring a mic up in time, or it's the hi-hat is too loud, people begin to notice. And so a couple of tips: we should always attempt to not distract people from the element that they're dealing with in the particular aspect of worship. So for example, if you're reading scripture, The use of technology at that point should not distract. I have an incredible, absolutely incredible team of volunteers at Riverstone Church. And if you're on the webinar right now, thank you so much. Riverstone volunteers, they're incredible. And when they put up the scripture on our screens, and I'm reading public reading of scripture, which is commanded in the New Testament, and I'm doing a reading of scripture, and the congregation is reading back and in response, they are so amazing at finding the lilt in my voice and knowing when to press that arrow key to turn to the next slide. Not only that, but our design team, oh my goodness, the design of our slides really brings the eye into the slides so that folks are less distracted with the use of technology. And again, I cannot speak highly enough of the volunteers at Riverstone Church. They're amazing. It should enhance, the use of technology should enhance the worship experience of your congregation. Folks are used to a high level of production. We say that again. Folks in our community and in our church are used to a high level of production. When they go to a concert down at, is it still the Wachovia Center? No, it's not the Wachovia. It's the Wells Fargo Center. Oh my goodness. When they go to a concert down at the Wells Fargo Center and they see a band, or they see a performance, or they see Cirque du Soleil, or they see even the Philadelphia Orchestra and performing with live music with the movies, there's a high level of production that people are expecting. And when people are on social media and they're using their phones, they're accustomed to a high level of production, even on TikTok. And I mean, you've done it. You've been scrolling through TikTok and you've seen a quality video and you stop and you're engaged. You know the bad videos and the bad production quality of even TikTok videos, and that you scroll by real quick. So we've got to be purposeful about enhancing our worship experience and really investing time, resources, money into developing our technological approach at church so that our production value can be decent. All right, it should bring us together. Of course. And we'll get into that in terms of the tips aspect in our audio production in particular. But there are ways that you can use technology, lighting, for example, to carve out segments within your flow of worship service that are intentional, that really drive people to the purpose of that particular segment. There are so many things that you can do because the tools are available to us as 21st century Christians. And it should be excellent, as I mentioned, because people expect a high production quality. All right. So like I said at the beginning of the presentation, we are presenting in an optimistic vein today, in a positive vein today, to say that technology can be used for His glory. In looking at the creation mandate at the beginning of Genesis, when God says, have dominion over the face of the earth and cultivate it and till it and plant seed and reap harvest. This is absolutely, technology is within that scope. It's within that framework of having dominion over the face of the earth. And technology is a wonderful opportunity for us to expand God's kingdom. And so technology are tools. They can be used for God's glory. They can also be used for evil. But we as a church, I think, should rise up and embrace this moment that in the last decade or so, our technological advances have been so significant that we should embrace them and use them for God's glory. In fact, I'm encouraging some of my kids, actually I'm encouraging all my kids to consider using and designing technologies that will help people and love neighbor and build the church. What an incredible opportunity that we have right in front of us to reach people for the gospel of Jesus and to make disciples. All right. Now we're into the practical parts of the presentation. I've got 3 quick tips for sound. Are you ready? If you are ready and you are still with me, put a Y, the letter Y in the chat. If you are ready to get into the practical stuff, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you so much for your encouragement. That gives me a boost. Also, this no foam latte from the Highlands Cafe also gives me a boost. Let me tell you, there was no Highlands Cafe when I was here in the 1990s. Let me tell you that. But I love our Highlands Cafe. It's amazing. All right. Sound. Now, in our Masters of Worship program, we've got pro people teaching the courses in how to get into the nitty-gritty and the details of sound reinforcement and in lighting and in digital audio workstations and in production and in writing and all of the above, okay? So these are quick tips. I hope it kind of whets your appetite, and I am available for questions in my email and can point you to resources at the end. Okay, so sound. Here's my suggestion for congregational singing. Your dB level should be 80 to 90, okay? 80 to 90. Now you're like, okay, what's a decibel level? Well, it's the volume, it's the level of volume. And on your phone, there are apps for decibel levels. I went to a daddy-daughter dance just a couple of weeks ago, and I got the dB level of the screams of elementary school girls at this dance, and it was louder than a jet plane. It was like 120 dB. It was insane. But you can get an app on your phone that tells you the dB level in your church. I recommend that you stand at the back of the room and get a dB level there. I also recommend that you sit in the middle of your room and get a dB level there. Maybe not totally up front near the speakers, that's not going to be accurate for you, but getting it at the back of the room or the middle of the room is going to be perfect. To not have low end in your sound mix is a sin. I'm just kidding. It's not a moral sin. It's an audio sin. All right? You need to have low end. I love low end. And it's interesting, when you put your low end in these fantastic subwoofers that are available, you develop that foundation for the resonance of your congregation to sing. If you're familiar with organ playing and pipe organ playing, you know, we've got those 32-foot stops that really provide that grumble foundation that people can sing over a top of. And you can also, 16-foot stop, of course, but it provides that base foundation that people can sing in a better way. And for the most part, I would suggest that your low end does not contribute to your overall dB meter. that much. Although I could be wrong in a scientific way, just in an experiential way, we need low end. Okay. And 3 quick tips. The third tip is steward your equipment. Steward your equipment. Care for your equipment. This is equipment that has been purchased for the worship of God, and people have given time, effort, and money to the purchasing of this equipment. It's really important that we steward these resources well. So using the cables well, understanding how to coil them up well, and store them well, what kind of temperature is needed. Those kinds of things are really important for the longevity and the stewardship of your worship ministry. And it also shows that you value worship ministry, and you can show your volunteers how to do it, and they feel a part of the team in doing so. And in a way, it's an act of worship. It's an act of worship looking after the stuff that God has given you. All right. You should begin to know the terminology. What's an XLR? What does that mean? It's the mic cable, by the way, but what does XLR mean? It doesn't mean what you think it means. Ground, left, right. It doesn't mean that. Anyhow, XLR is a type of cable, and it's a type of cable that goes into your microphones. Beginning to sort of build your own glossary of sound type terms is going to help you as a worship leader to engage with your sound ministry in a better way. Okay, now, what about EQ? Okay, EQ, reverb. Friends, we need more reverb. We need more reverb. This past Sunday, our live stream team at Riverstone Church put a little bit of reverb on my voice. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, I can sing in tune, but I need all the help I can get. All right, let's talk reverb. So understanding, what gain is, so you can talk to your sound guys about, hey, what's the difference between volume? What's the difference between using the fader and using the gain situation there, okay? What is gain? So asking these questions and getting a glossary, a basic glossary of these terms is so important for you as worship leaders in engaging your team, engaging your AV team. Cool. Let's talk about lighting. Okay, lighting. For most of my worship leading career, I have not had to deal with lighting because many of the churches that I served in were in the traditional space. However, when it came to special productions, lighting became important. And at Riverstone, lighting is very important to our video production and our live stream, and also in our regular Sunday morning worship services. So let's do this. Put a Y in the chat if you're still with me and you use some kind of lighting software. So I would think that the majority of the participants on the webinar today have a similar lighting situation that I'm familiar with for the majority of my worship leading career, in that it's a pretty basic preset lighting situation. And that is great. But there are ways to enhance your lighting at low cost. I want you to start to think about the shadows, perhaps, that are on the faces of your presenters. In the webinar right now, I'm looking at my face, and I have what is known as downlighting happening. It's hitting my head, and I forgot to powder my face. No, I'm just kidding. I never powder my face, but There is a glow on my face because I have this fluorescent light kind of coming down, but I have no uplighting, lighting that's coming directly up, so that there's a shadow. There's a shadow here. It's okay for a webinar, but for the preaching of the gospel, for leading people in worship, you want your whole person to be lit up. And there are ways to do it. YouTube is your best friend, okay, is your best friend. It is the second most used search engine in the world. And there are so many tutorials that are on there in relationship to theater lighting. Theater lighting. I recommend looking up these various videos on how to do basic lighting setups. What kinds of colors are out there? Is your space being presented in a warm or cold way? Okay, warm or cold way. And there are so many software applications to be used interfacing with a lighting kit. We're using Light Key right now. That is fantastic and very user-friendly. Even I can use it. And it's fantastic. And maybe at the end of the seminar, I can show you a web page for Light Key. But anyhow, you can Google Light Key. They have tutorials. They have, of course, they want to sell their product, so they're going to go through their product pretty quickly and clearly and succinctly so that volunteers can use it. But understanding lighting and understanding the capacity for various lighting platforms is key to helping enhance your worship service and helping to enhance it on multiple fronts. Okay. Next, presentation software. If you are using ProPresenter, put a PP in the chat. PP. Fantastic. And if you use another type of software for presenting your songs and things of that nature, or video, go ahead and put that software in the chat. And I'm just going to open up the chat real quick. Microsoft PowerPoint, YPP, Microsoft PPPT, a PowerPoint. Okay, we got PowerPoint up here. It's very user-friendly, and it's got a lot of fantastic applications on there. PowerPoint, excellent, excellent, cool. We use ProPresenter at Riverstone Church in that we're able to do multiple things with it. We're able to share and edit across the platform, and we're also able to upload videos and present services sort of in an integrated way in one platform. PowerPoint is fantastic. Also, ProPresenter has capacity with CCLI and other licensing technologies, licensing platforms, I should say, and Planning Center that we use very heavily at Riverstone Church. Cool. Presenting software, there are so many kinds of presenting softwares that are out there. Even for this webinar, I designed these slides on Canva. I have a personal membership with Canva, so I designed my slides on Canva. It's an open source kind of design platform on the internet. And there are so many platforms out there that that are really, I mean, hello, I'm a 19th century pianist. I studied piano performance all the way through school. So, I specialize in the 19th century, and I can design something on Canva. So it's very user-friendly, and ProPresenter is very user-friendly, and PowerPoint's also user-friendly. the integration piece in terms of the ProPresenter to Planning Center to our other softwares that we use at Riverstone is very important to us, so that's why we use it. Cool. Next, we are going on. All right, let's talk about Livestream. I know that it is a hot topic right now, whether or not you can have church over Livestream or whether you need to be gathered in person. Ideally, friends, ideally, we need to be gathered together in person, right? That's how God has designed it to happen. But hello, the pandemic threw us for a loop. And not to be doom and gloom, it's probably not going to be the last global pandemic that we experience. And so having the capacity for a live stream and to record video and to record a worship service is huge, Live streams can reach your community with targeted Facebook ad campaigns and other social media ads like nothing else. Search engines and algorithms within the social media thing are really putting a priority on video, really putting a high priority on video, short video, long video, good content. And we have experienced at Riverstone, we had a baptism service just a couple of weeks ago where several folks were baptized and they're believing baptism, and they testified, all of them testified to the fact that they were ministered to throughout the pandemic through the live stream. That they either came to Christ through the live stream at Riverstone Church, or that they were challenged to fuller obedience in the Lord over the live stream. And so the more we can see the live stream capacity being something that enhances our worship experience, both on Sunday mornings to our believing church family, but also to folks that don't know the Lord. The community, though, wants to see quality. Like I mentioned before, they're used to a high quality production. But friends, this iPhone that I have in my hand right now has a camera that can produce a high quality video image, and you can live stream it to a Facebook platform, to a YouTube platform, to any kind of platform that you need. That's just at the basic level. Now, to continue to sort of upgrade and get a little bit more fancy with video switchers and putting your slides and scripture in different camera angles, there are so many different kinds of things that you can do. I suggest that you start small. Start small with an iPhone on a tripod and test it out. I went from an iPhone on a tripod to an iPhone that was hooked up to my computer via Bluetooth, and I downloaded this free software that enabled me to live stream on Facebook with different kinds of slides and things like that, and I was able to learn it. Again, I'm a pianist, and I was able to learn it. I know that you can learn it too. It's just a matter of doing a little bit of research as to what to use. In our volunteer team at Riverstone Church, I mean, we started again with an iPhone on a tripod, and now it's like NFL films. It's insane. We've got our own video booth with several monitors, and our team, there was a couple on our team that just took ownership of it, and they watched video after video as how to set up live streams, and there are, churches that do it very, very well, and they have fantastic tutorials online, and they watch tutorial after tutorial, attended webinars, and were able to glean how to produce a high quality live stream. And it is really a blessing for our church community. So that's a little bit about live streaming, a couple of tips related to live streaming. Oh, well, this slide is used is to show you that you can have targeted events on Facebook in particular, or on other platforms if you're not comfortable with Facebook, to expand your reach with providing engaging content. And you can also use webinars to expand your email list and to expand your email marketing is back. In business, as you know, some of you might be in business, email marketing is where it's at. There is more conversion rate for email marketing than any other social media ad campaign or anything of that nature. Your email list is yours. You own that list, and you can communicate directly with your audience. So using webinars to build up an email list, there's so much possibility in reaching people in your community for the gospel of Jesus. And then you invite them to in-person events through your email campaigns. That's just a little bit of a calm flow, as it were, to bring people to your church. That's how live stream can be used. It can be very, very powerful. Okay, growing your team and ministering to your team. When I was in Delaware serving, a mentor of mine said, you need to be here early to set up the music stands so that they know, so that your people know that you are taking care of them. I will never forget that. You need to show up and take care of your people. And the way you take care of people in the 21st century is by scheduling and planning. I'm learning more about that every single day, and learning how to plan better, learning how to schedule our volunteers in a better way, learning how to put together worship services that are planned and prepared and prayed over. There are so many opportunities for us to grow and make sure that our team it feels like they're being taken care of and they're being loved in the planning. How many of you use Planning Center Online? And then feel free to put in other softwares that your church might use. We use Planning Center to house our database for our church family. I mean, our kids ministry checks in through Planning Center Online. And all of our volunteers are scheduled through Planning Center Online, whether they're greeters, whether they're ushers, whether they're in the kitchen, whether they're serving up on worship ministry. Planning Center Online saves me, and I'm not kidding, about 20 hours a week. It's that powerful of a tool. Oh, time is flying by. I do need to wrap it up. My goodness, time is flying down. Okay, DAWs, digital audio workstations, is a great way to train your team in audio and visual production and in live performance, etc. If you're interested in digital audio workstations, you can email me. We have the one and only Scott Watson teaching in our master's program on the aspect of digital audio workstations. He literally wrote the book, Music Technology in the Classroom, for Oxford University Press. He's a total pro. All right, Gwen, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready for questions. I'm sorry I went a little bit long there.
No problem.
We were having too much fun.
Absolutely. You want to unshare your screen?
I will. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There we go. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Yes, with the questions that we have a question from Darren.
Okay.
And Darren asks, will you be able to provide a listing of resources for us today to our emails?
Yes. I will get together a list for you, Gwen, and then we can send them out. Absolutely.
Okay, excellent, because we'll be sending out the recording to everyone so we can.
Oh, that's a perfect time to do that.
Yep. Excellent, excellent. Okay, Jesse Nalstatter. Okay. Our worship is not large, probably 100 feet wide and 75 feet deep. It is treated well for sound.
Good.
Would you use line arrays in a smaller space like this for sound reinforcement?
Wow. That's a great question. It depends upon the space. Oh man, that's a great question. That's up to you. I'm not going to be able to speak to that without seeing the space, but I'll tell you, we use these powered speakers for our outdoor services that I'm pretty sure carried about a mile. I mean, they were so loud. They were so loud. It was unbelievable. And they're like this. They're like little guys, right? And we used them. The low end was fantastic. This was in transition from total live stream to outdoor services and live stream before we got inside. And so it really depends, because the speaker technology is so improved, right? I mean, we had this tower speaker, Bose tower speaker down in Delaware on both sides that was just stunning, but it looked like computer speakers. They were just absolutely stunning. So it sounds, for your particular worship space, that it's a little bit small. You have a lot of options there, really. You have a lot of options.
Very good, very good. And Jesse also asked, what is your approach to worship backgrounds?
Worship backgrounds. Ooh,
yes.
like stage backgrounds, I would imagine you're referring to. I love them. They can be, and that's where, worship leaders almost have to be amateur anthropologists to really understand the community in which they serve. So I know that a particular worship background that's gonna work in a particular congregation that has like a higher DB level is not going to work in our particular church. So you have to be sensitive to the culture that you're presenting in. And in our particular church, something subtle, something that's delicate, and something that kind of gets the point across is what you're trying to communicate, I think is absolutely fantastic.
Okay, that's really all the questions that we have. And we are just about out of time, so it worked out really well. But before we leave, I just wanted to thank you, Dr. Harding, for a very helpful and very informative presentation. And thank you so much for your time today, because it was just very, very valuable. And we'll be sending out a link of today's webinar to everyone in a follow-up email. And we'll also send you out the resource list as well. And we encourage you just to share this webinar with anyone that you think will benefit from it, from the content. And also, we just wanted to mention that we will be launching our fully online MA in worship and music program starting this fall. And we're very excited about that. And so we're very excited about that. And this graduate program teaches biblically minded musicians how to use their talents and the technology at their disposal to effectively lead worship, manage teams, and point congregations to Christ. Amen. And if you would like to learn more about this program, please feel free to go to our website or any of our graduate programs. Go to our website to learn more, or you can email admissions@cairn.edu to speak to one of our missions counselors. And also this summer, we are offering a course, Planning Worship Theologically. And this course will be a 7-week module from July 7th through August the 21st. So if you want to take this course as a non-matriculating student this summer, please feel free to go to our website to learn more. You can apply there. Seats are limited, so apply today to secure your spot. And
Yes.
we're also currently enrolling for Karen's graduate programs for the summer as well as the fall. The summer semester starts May 16th and the fall semester starts August the 29th. And if you would like to audit a class, feel free to do so. Apply at our website or email the email address that I mentioned previously. We are so grateful that you were able to join us for today's webinar, and we hope that this time has been very helpful for you, and we look forward to you joining us the next time. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.